Okay, I just give the folks some time to join in. You can also come closer. Here in front is plenty of rows, and if you are up for bribing, also there will be bribing in the front row for sure. So don't be shy. Okay, so there's the Slido. So in case you have questions for me, I was told you can use that one. Please put in all the questions you have during my talk. Otherwise, you will also find me later on around here, and also I will host a round table by the end of the conference. So, okay, I hope you all have scanned it, because I'm now starting with the presentation. Or not. There, yeah, I have it. Okay. Hey everyone, so my topic today is Beyond Code, a tester's approach to pull request reviews. And as you have already heard, my name is Andrea. I'm a lover of tea. I'm a reader. I'm a traveler. And in my day job, I'm a tester and a manager in the maritime industry. So whenever someone asks me what I'm doing, I say, I basically play Tetris on big container ships. And more than that, I'm also a tester who loves to review pull requests, much to the disappointment of my development team. But we come to that in a later point. So today I want to share with you why I love and reviewing pull requests. And this morning, Daniel asked me whether this talk is based on real-life experience, the good and the bad. And yes, it is. Maybe we can also call this my pull request therapy session. So, but before we go into therapy, or before I explain how I review the pull request from the start till the end, I will do a bit of groundwork for those of you who have maybe not worked with pull requests yet. So we will have a bit of a definition first. Also, I show the key elements of a pull request, and then I will walk you through my approach, how I review a pull request. By the end, there's a bit of wrapping up, and also this helpful and motivational koala beer will show you how you can get started to do the pull request review yourself. So, a definition. While I was putting this talk together, I was running through the internet, checking out for definitions, and what a surprise. Every tool vendor, every tool provider has their own. So they all come with different flavors. You may have heard about GitHub or GitLab. You may have heard about Bitbucket or Azure DevOps from Microsoft. However, as I said, they come with different flavors. Essentially, they all boil down to the very same. And that is that a pull request contains source code changes of some piece of software. That might be the app you are currently developing with your team and you are selling to your customers. That might be your automation code, whatever it is. And the pull request is the intentional invite from an author to the team to review the changes they did on their branch and ask the team to give them feedback about the changes they have done, about the source code. And that all happens on this branch, which is a working copy of the current system, because we don't want to crash production, right? Not that often. So this working copy, this branch will be reviewed before eventually the changes will get merged into the main source code base. And ideally, this all happens in a social, collaborative atmosphere among the team. Ideally. However, to my honest belief, this is a very collaborative approach. And with all sarcasm and snarky comments aside, that is the time where the team can work and collaborate on the same thing in order to make the software we produce as a team as good as possible, with all the different views and opinions included. And if this is now all gibberish to you because you had never heard about a pull request and a branch before, here the motivational and helpful koala has a bit of a simplified model for you. So this is a simplified Git flow where we have this here as the production system. And whenever we want to do a change, we create a branch and work on this working copy in order not to break the existing system. And everything I'm telling today is in this blue circle on the timeline. That all happens on the blue circle because there is where the review happens before we eventually, again, go back into the main development branch. And if you are working not with GitHub, but with GitLab, you may heard about the word merge request. Today, I will take GitHub as the example. And with that said, we quickly now go through the key elements of a pull request. So if you have not worked with them before, going through them will help you to identify the elements. Although I said I use now GitHub, you also can use other tools, other source control systems. They work similar. They may name it a little bit different. They may place it somewhere else in the UI. But in a nutshell, you will be fine. And that is now an example if you go to GitHub, and I use their public repository, which you also can look up later on. And that's how it would look like. And I don't want to show now the entire picture to you to overwhelm you. So let's go into more details here. On top, you always have the navigation. So that tells you which is the repository you are currently working on and how you can navigate. So in case you're working on several different products, that helps to keep the orientation. Below that, you will see the pull requests. And the single pull requests always come with a bit of meter information, like the title, ideally in a speaking way, some identifying number, the current status. They will also name the author, so you know the person who you want to approach, and also the source branch name and the name of the topic branch, the working copy. Just a little bit below, you find several tabs where you can have the conversation, which means the synchronous or asynchronous communication with your team members, the commits, which show you a timeline on the changes which have been happening on the pull request and on the branch, the checks, that can be automated or manual checks, automated checks in the way of included in your pipeline, like security scans, builds, executing the unit tests, or some manual checks where you can see who else needs to review this pull request, or what else do we need to think about. And then, of course, ultimately, also the source code files which have been changed will be listed. If you are looking closer in the communication, in the conversation tab, there is where the collaboration can happen. And I say now can happen because, yes, we can write things down here, we can add communication or conversation to it, also add comments, but I'm saying this with the purpose of documenting things. I'm not saying that you not need to talk to your developers, your testers, or anyone else in the team. Please also don't stop to have verbal communication in the team. So we keep this for documentation. Whenever someone has some feedback to share, we will add comments to that, and they can then be replied by the author. And eventually, we have the reviewers. That are the other person or accounts which are included in the review process. That can be a particular person, or it can be a user role as a group. And then they can, and a person will then approve or reject as the substitute of this role. And that's all about the theory at the moment. Now I will come to my review approach. And I say deliberately my review approach because when I did a bit of research, how can I review a pull request? I found a ton of material, mainly focusing on how to do a super good code review. How do I give feedback to my peer developer? What are the best practices in code review? I have not much found about how, as a tester, can I review a pull request and what is more to explore beyond the code. So I now was coming up with my own review process. And mine is a 4-step one. So the step number 1, which I'm always checking first, are policies and guidelines. And you see now a couple of examples what I'm going to check. But that said, your reality might be different. So that depends on your team setup and on the agreements you have in the team. For instance, I'm going to check what is the status of the pull request. And we have the agreement in our team that I usually don't touch something which is in a draft mode because developers are still working on it, unless we agreed otherwise. So I would check, is the pull request in an open status? Well, then it's cool, then it's ready for me to grab it and test it. I will also check, are the naming conventions correct? Again, that is a team agreement. Do you have naming conventions? In some source control systems, you can have naming conventions implemented, and also you can have an automated check that prevent eventually the merging of this pull request if they are not applied. And we learned this by painful learning, that you did the entire flow of the review process, and eventually we're not able to merge it because you were not compliant with the naming conventions. So I will have a look if the naming conventions are applied. That can be, is it a bug fix, is it a hot fix, is it a feature? So whatever your team has agreed on. Also, I'm checking which branches are addressed. Whether I address another topic branch because we're working on a bigger feature, if it's a bug fix that will go in our development branch, or unfortunate scenario, do we need to deliver a hotfix? Because the branches which are addressed will also, or can also impact, that's the word, can impact my testing, what I'm doing. What I'm testing, which tests do I run, what kind of automation do I execute, and so on and so forth. Also, I will have an eye on who are the other reviewers. So who from the development team is invited? If that is a new feature, is our product manager / product owner already in the review process, that they had already a look at it? And also, what stages are the checks? And that can be, as I said, automated or manual checks. And here on the side, you see some examples of the checks. The first one, failing. Failing build is never a good thing. So here I will probably not start testing the pull request at this very moment, but I will go have a deeper look into it and pull in my developer if needed. Then, of course, we are still in the review process. The community PR approval is still open. That's quite expected. And at the bottom, you see a couple of checks which have been passing. And that is quite a nice and neat thing to do, having checks or red crosses to identify how is the state of your pull request at the very moment. But be warned, the checks are only as good as the things they are checking. Also, automation and automated checks in your CI/CD pipeline can come with failures and flaws. And yes, we experienced this as well, especially after we changed our infrastructure. So I was going through one of the pull requests, our green check marks, nice and neat. The code review was done, the testing was done, we approved it, we pushed it to production. And then later on, it hit us. Yes, the unit tests, the check has checked whether they had been executed. The check has not checked whether they were okay or not. And they were not. So never forget, even though you might be testing your CI/CD pipeline at some moment and the work of your developers or your DevOps people, don't trust them blindly. The second part I'm checking out is the documentation. So the pull request is a source of documentation. I'm going to check what is the scope of the change. What does the developer or the author of this pull request wants to change? Is there documentation about the expected outcome? Do I really know what the change is intended to do? Are references to user stories, Jira issues, any work items? Then I will read through them. And while I'm doing that, I will seek for clarity, for my own understanding, that I understand what this particular set of source code changes is all about. And also I have an eye on the completeness, because more often than not, I see that for new features, the happy path is covered. But seldomly, what would happen if the user just take a turn and does something very unexpected? And here, you will see some examples about documentation. So that is something I would consider as a good-ish documentation. The author referred to the issue they fixed. They also explained a bit the root cause of the problem and gave even further references what could be interesting to think about the future. That is something really nice to see, because here I could go through and make a bit of a sense of it, what happens. That would be the ideal case, right? Well, testers not always living in the ideal case, they also live in reality. And sometimes I come across things like that. There's a questionable title and no documentation at all. And not only me, but also the koala thinks, well, I have a ton of questions here. And if you see something like this in your reality, that's a good point to start a conversation. Have a call with your developer, ping them on Slack, Teams, whatever tool you use, and ask them, hey, do you have some time for me? I have a question. And that is then the way to start the collaborative approach I talked earlier about in the pull request review. It's not only about the source code, it's about the entire journey. So the developer might give you an answer, but also they might not be available due to time differences. It's their day off. They just don't fancy talking to a tester. Can also happen, I heard about. Or you're just not in sync time-wise at the moment. Or another option, you want to have a second opinion, because it was nice what the developer told you, but you think like, do I want to know more? And nowadays, AI is all around. So why not make use of it? If you're working with GitHub, there's Copilot coming along the way. And if you have a license, just ask Copilot, hey, tell me about this pull request. It's very simple. You just go into the pull request yourself, open Copilot, and give it a simple prompt. And surprisingly, a lot of times it gives quite good, reasonable answers. And they could help to get your tester brain thinking about, what do I need to cover? Where's the risk of this change? Where do I maybe need to put a focus on? And then this third part I'm checking are the commands and the commits. So did any code reviewer earlier or any other reviewer left a comment about something I need to consider? I usually read through all the comments. Also, the commit timeline in combination with the comments can be quite interesting, especially if the developer is giving feedback on how the best practice is, on what to consider regarding the coding. When you also put the commit timeline into relation to the comments, you can see that the author cares about what the other reviewer gave them as a feedback. Did they change something? Or did they just close the comment with not applicable? And the commit timeline and the commit messages can be quite interesting if they are used reasonable. So if there's just a commit message with a full stop or a T or fix one, it doesn't help much. But some developers even put in meaningful commit messages, and they can trigger new ideas or amplify what you will learn. So just read through them. And now coming to the last part, of course, files and code. I said in the beginning, the code reviews, sources, the blogs, the articles I found were very code-centric. And yes, there's also code to discover and to explore. And if you are comfortable with coding as a tester, super. That's cool. That's a great place to get involved in and to get your fingers in the software development lifecycle. But also if you're a tester who's not encoding yet, or is not encoding, that's also a great place to sneak in once in a while. Just have a look on it, learn more about the things which happen there, and with time and experience, you will gain more knowledge. Trust me, I've started there as well. And here's a list of some classical things I usually love to check, and this is a non-exhaustive list, so you could put 20 more things to that. First of all, typos. Typos are my all-time favorite. Because yes, copy-pasting from a story, yes, super easy, and then you copy half of the sentence. Or you're missing the full stop, you're missing the capital letter, and I as a tester don't need to run the entire software, don't need to deploy everything to catch this missing letter. I can also already see this in the source code. So what's the point of waiting? What I also like to check are external files or references in the software project. The changed files, so what files have been changed, but also the numbers of changed files can give a quite interesting learning, and I have an example for that later on. Some teams even include the documentation like user manuals, user guides into their repository, so that's also a good way to check what's going on there and are we up to date, and to help the team to not only produce the software, but also the surrounding auxiliary artifacts you use with the software. And I'm a tester. Of course, I check the unit tests. I couldn't help myself. And here, there's again an example if you're not into coding yet. So the red ones are the lines which are either deleted or changed, and the green one is then the updated state or the new added line. And I also have some more examples for you about that. So the update of external files. In this example, let's consider the following scenario. It's the update of an installer of an on-prem application. The installer is living in another repository, and the team wants to upgrade the installer. So on the top level example, you see, oops, that was the wrong one. You see here, there's the version number 171, and we want to upgrade to 172. Looks all nice and neat to me. I would start now pulling the application and running the installation procedure to see if the new installer still works and does what it does. But sometimes I can also come across something like that we have the installer initially 171, and then the developer wants to upgrade to version number 172-pull request 1234. At least when I see something like that, it will create a raised eyebrow and at minimum a message to my developer, because that is an indicator this is an unreleased installer, unreleased software. And our team, we have the agreement. We don't want to publish unreleased software. We don't want to pull in any playground trial versions. So while this might be fair for the initial testing to see if the changes in the installer are all right in combination with the rest of the software, I don't want to see something like that in the final phase of the pull request before everything will be merged. So at minimum, this will create at least a short conversation with the developer to tell them, hey, please keep in mind, by the end, we need to upgrade this to the official version. That also goes for other microservices, external references, libraries, you name it. Number of changes. That is also a good one. Here the scenario is we have a hotfix, some of the stuff we usually don't want to have so much, and we need to have just an interface. In that particular tool, take it as assumption, that's usually a one file code change. Maybe 1 or 2 lines of code, not too much. But when I look here at the numbers of files changed, almost 700, that doesn't sound a bit odd. And I created raised eyebrows for the DevOps person and also for myself. And we were digging a bit deeper into it. Eventually, it turned out that accidentally, the branching was not done correctly and we almost overwrite. We plan to overwrite the entire application and all the files into production. So I'm very happy that we had an eye on that and that we could prevent things from happening like this and just pushing things into production. Another example are unrelated changes. So here the title says, I upgrade the manual. The manual in this case is a PDF. So the change I would expect to see is that one PDF will be replaced by a newer version of the PDF. But also I see that editor actions have been added, which is a part of the UI and have nothing to do with upgrading the PDF and the user manual for that particular case. So while the developer might have a valid reason to do so, I would not know if I would not have looked into the files changed. Because the title simply says, upgrade the installer. The documentation simply says, not the installer, the PDF. The documentation simply said, include the latest changes in the user guide. So I would not know. In that case, again, a great starter for having a conversation with the author. Give them a ring and tell them, hey, I noticed there's something else in the change, so could you tell me more about that? Sometimes they may say, well, there was a typo, or yeah, ReadSharper did it for better readability reasons. Sometimes, and that happened to me in reality, they also say, well, there was a bug and I thought it's easier just to fix it here than to raise another pull request. And I could now debate for hours whether I like this approach or not. I'm not doing, because that's not part of the topic today. However, I'm happy that the developer then tells me what they did and that we had the conversation, because then I could extend my testing not only to see whether the documentation was updated or not. I also can check in the UI how the things are now looking and what was the change about and is it correctly applied. Otherwise, it may have slipped through. And that could be a potential risk. I'm not saying it necessarily will crash everything, I don't know, but it could. And testing is a lot about coulds and woulds and things like that. And then the last example, the unit tests. So in the teams I'm working, the developers are writing the unit tests. It's not us as testers. However, I still like to have a conversation with them about unit testing and be their friendly, collaborative, maybe slightly pushing developer to tester to ask them, hey, could you write a unit test? Because we're adding a whole new feature, so why shouldn't we not test this a bit, right? So when I see a new feature without any unit test, I might have, again, a conversation, drop a comment in the pull request, or just give them a ring, or catch them in the kitchen when they refill with coffee or water. And I also may notice something like that, a test class with simply no content. That's pretty useless. And I would ask them, hey, do you not want to change that? You don't want to push that really, right? So again, we have here the collaborative approach of pull request reviews. Have conversations with the author. And while I'm now placing usually the author in the developer role, same things go equally fine for test automation code. We can have the same conversation among us testers. And you may think, are you not done yet? Oh, no, I'm not. There comes more. So I'm done with the pull request review from the beginning to the end. So starting with policies and guidelines, checking out the documentation, having a look on the commit structure and the comments, and going through the source code changes. What now comes next for me, and again, I say here that is my reality. Yours might be different depending on your setup of the team, on how you're organized in your software development lifecycle. I will now deploy my web automation to a test environment, I will pull my branches for the on-prem installations and run them on a local computer and do the testing before eventually merge the pull request. That might work for you as well, but maybe you also need to wait and just have the learning you have during the review and put them on a paper, on a notepad, on your Jira ticket, whatsoever floats the boat for you, and keep it there for the moment until your test environment is deployed, until you receive the MSI package, depending on how you work. So what now comes next for me is I run the software, I include all my learning, the things I already know, and the stuff I learned new during the review process. The questions the developer answered, and I will check them. The questions I still have in my mind where I don't have an answer yet for, but I want to explore them. And I will include all those learnings. I will run the tests. I may create new tests. I run my automation. And then when I have findings, in the unlikely case, I will add a comment to the pull request myself and have the conversation and continue the conversation with the author. And the conversation and also the testing may go in one iteration, may go in many iterations, depending on the amount of changes and on the amount of on the quality of the change. How good is it? And does it fit to the purpose and does it fit to the scope we agreed on? And then, finally, then it's time to approve. And it's also time to celebrate, maybe treat yourself with something small, and here are some bags, so you can also treat yourself now if you want to. There are little bags which hopefully made it till the end. So I told you in the beginning, you have to sit in front to get some treats. And approve the pull request and celebrate what was achieved as a team. And of course, this is now the koala, so I have eucalyptus candy here with me. And looking more, what is in it for me and what comes next, and why do I like to sneak into pull requests? So reviewing a pull request as a tester is for me an approved approach, because I'm included earlier on in the team. I can help the team to go through the changes with my personal set of views, understanding, knowledge, and my personal pair of eyes, because, trust me, developers, if they review a pull request, they review it from a very different angle than a tester might do. So I'm shifting left in testing, getting involved earlier on, and include this into our software development lifecycle to give the feedback also to the developers before we eventually merge everything into production. It has a preventive character. So if you are happy when you find a bug and can file it, that is not so much what we do here when we do a pull request review. It's less about finding the bugs at a later stage. It's more about preventing the bugs from becoming reality. So I cannot really say, by the end of the day, I cannot say I found 10 bugs. Awesome. I cannot even say I prevented 10 bugs, because that is guessing and I don't really know. But I can say we delivered pull request as a team and we did our utmost to deliver a quality product. And very personally for me, I just have more information. And I like to have more information and more knowledge. And I just like to learn more about the system, how everything works together, how the things are interacting. And every single pull request is a new opportunity for more learning, for more understanding, and for being better informed on the testing. So, and if you now are also all that interested in starting the pull request for you, review for you, we have again here the motivational koala who tells you how you can get started. So first of all, get access to the source control system in your team if you have not yet. I hope you all have already, but if not, push to get a license. Find someone to walk you through the software development lifecycle through the pull request, through the source control system you are using. That can be another tester maybe, an SDAT if you want, or your favorite developer you can trust. And this is now an offer that goes for you, whether you want it or not, let me know. If you can't find anyone, reach out to the community, and if you even can't find anyone in the community, reach out to me, and I try my best to help you to get started with it. Try it out yourself. So once you have access, once you know your way around and how to log in, grab the first pull request and try it out. Let's see what you can find, what is there to explore, what you can do. And with every pull request, never forget, ask questions if you can't make sense of things. It's not that you're not experienced enough. Also, a lot of times, the pull requests are just in a bad state. Check things if you don't understand them. Start questioning. I mean, QA stands for question asker. Really, it's our profession to question things up to the limit that people are super annoyed when you just start with, I have a question. Keep on learning. As I said, for me, every pull request is still a learning opportunity. I do this now for a couple of years, and I still can discover new things and very interesting things, up to a point that I can explain my developers what they have in their pull request. So, learn it. And never forget, sometimes it's really hard in the vast amount of branches to see the entire tree. So, stay calm, take one branch at a time, and in doubt, have a eucalyptus. So that's all I had for today. So if you have no Slido questions, I'm here for you. Otherwise, catch me later. Okay.
Can I ask how do you do code reviews effectively and efficiently, if you have any tips and tricks? Especially, I am proficient in any programming language, but probably many of the people here don't know programming languages, that for them, how to do it effectively, efficiently.
Okay. So I don't know if you all heard it. The question was how to get effective and efficiently in the code review if you're not into programming, if I got that correct. Yes, I see not. Okay. So initially, I did not start into programming. So to me, it was like all gibberish in the beginning. What was really a good, helpful start for me is pull in one of the developers. And I had a very cool colleague who just pulled me into his source code and was talking me through. So that already helps. And I mean, there are plenty of tools outside and courses outside to get you then more started if that catches your interest. But my best answer to that at the moment is just get started and find people in your team who are willing to help and to support you. And my experience is if you ask for help, usually people like to help you. You just need to ask for it. Okay. Does that?
Yes. And also you didn't mention AI at all for the code review. Are you using it? Do you have some prompts you like?
I mean, in the review, I use Copilot to give me ideas about what was going on in the text and in the documentation, but also I will ask, like, can you analyze the source code and give back to me what you think about? However, I don't claim that the review process I'm doing is a substitute for a source code review by another developer. So, but yeah, also Copilot gives feedback depending on the product you're working on, sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. I think it's still an evolution.
It is also about the quality of the prompts and what questions we ask. That's why
I don't have the prompt now with me, but if you can contact me later and I can share them with you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, then maybe let's see what Slido has to offer here. How satisfied are you with the code review outputs provided by GitHub Copilot? Does it save you time or cause you more hassle? I don't have data to that yet, but at the moment, I'm a bit indifferent. Yes, it helps. It helps to catch things, but sometimes, at least in the products I'm working in, Copilot has not the context awareness and gives back weird recommendations, which just sometimes crash things. So still today, we need to be mindfully looking at it, if that is a good recommendation or not. And in those cases, I also rely on the developers then to judge whether it would help and improve their source code or not. Okay, then the next question. And I hope, David, that answered your question. Otherwise, catch me, please. Do devs wait for your approval before merging? The whole process of reviewing all the pull requests sounds very time-consuming. Great question. So they don't have an option to not wait. Time-consuming, it depends. So when it's a small bug fix, my review process, which I explained here now in detail, takes a couple of minutes. The testing will surely always happen because we have the policy implemented that our pull requests are not merged without including a tester, just in order to avoid pushing things unconsciously into our source code and crash things. So whether they like it or not, they have to wait. And in the beginning, when we started that, yes, there was a lot of disappointment. They were saying, hey, it slows us all down. We can't deliver anything anymore. We had never really that case. I mean, the things are changing. We as testers get involved earlier, and that's also how I would promote and advocate for it. We get involved earlier, but it saves us time later on doing testing and develop and filing bugs, which the developer then again has to fix, and then we retest again and develop. So isn't it better to test earlier, give feedback faster to them, and eventually change in the timeline where we are getting into the team works? So I even would not say it slows us down. It just changes the time when we are getting involved. Okay, so the next question. Do other developers also review pull requests in your company? What is the main benefit of testers reviewing PRs compared to developers? Yes, developers are also reviewing. They do the source code review. That's the expectation. And the benefit of the testers are reviewing it. That was on my second to last slide. We get involved earlier. We look at things in a different angle with different eyes, with our personal different experiences. We may find things another developer would not find, like the typo, things like in the details or also in the pipeline. I have conversations with developers where they don't know what's happening in the pipeline, and I can help them out. So that's the benefit I see. And also it improves and it supports my testing later on if I want to do a regression testing. I know more, I can ask the questions earlier on. Saving time, have a collaborative approach.
Okay. Sorry for jumping in. We have to cut the Q&A session. Please, if you have any further questions, you can visit Andrea during the roundtables and also during the after party, which will be in the evening. But for now, we have to have a quick break, and then we will have another speaker. So thank you very much, Andrea. Thank you very much.
Thank you.